Welcome to our podcast. I am Rick Vieweg.
I'm Sarah Stockdale.
I'm Andrew Corway.
I'm Tommy Guy. And this is Pagenerd. Finally, we had a book that I'm not embarrassed to read. And thank God, those first couple were a real struggle, but this book was like my sweet spot. So Emily St. John Mandel, you're my new hero. Today we're reading Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. That's the place where we landed on the moon. I actually bought it at my local bookstore. Shout out to Elliott Bay. I do this sometimes where I'll take a run to get to the bookstore and then I'm just like gross and sweaty and I wander around and buy a book and I'm a little embarrassed, and that's what I did. So this book got a little sweaty on the way home.
Just added character to it, Tommy.
Yeah.
It's seasoning. I like this.
It's seasoning. I seasoned it before I read it and then I enjoyed it. Okay. Let's just jump into this thing because this book is a trip. Just a little housekeeping. So this book it's in 8 sections. Each of them is in a different time period. It's going to get not quite dark matter levels of confusing, but a little confusing of where exactly we are at any given time. We're going to do our absolute best to remind you where we are as we travel forward and backwards through time. Spoiler alert, there's a lot of time travel. So we immediately meet this guy, Edwin. I already screwed up. Sorry. It's 1912, approximately when the Titanic sank. People were coming to this area, to Canada, to the United States from England because England was full. And in particular, it was full of second sons because, like good biblical people, we only give all of our stuff to the firstborn son. Firstborn son here. I like this plan. But Edwin was a second son. And so he's got that not going for him. And he needs to leave because he's not going to inherit Old England's estate. He also has a habit of running his mouth. And so he, sort of pointed out that maybe the colonized people did not enjoy being colonized, which apparently in 1912 England was enough to get you banished. So poor Edwin, he gets banished. He comes over to Canada. And I'll be honest, at this point, I'm like, this is going to be a story about Edwin. Not really, though. It's kind of interesting. So we do follow his progression across Canada. He lands in, one of you guys would know. Where does he land?
Halifax.
Was this like the New York of Canada? Is that how that works?
I don't think Halifax was ever the New York of Canada.
No, it's never been. I think actually like the most commonplace port of entry was Quebec, but Halifax is obviously like closer to the coast, so I'm sure lots of people landed there too.
That makes total sense. He gets the entire experience because he lands in Halifax and effectively drinks his way across Canada, just sort of shiftless, kind of aimless, just not really much going on for Edwin. Eventually makes it all the way over to Victoria, which, Sarah, I know you know Victoria. What is Victoria like?
Think of Lothlorien from Lord of the Rings. Like just the most gorgeous place you've ever been. Huge, tall redwood trees, just gorgeous sea. Yeah.
Fact check. There are no redwoods in Victoria.
Well, giant trees, okay?
Giant trees.
Also, this is not the arborist podcast. So, I don't know, really big ass
How dare
trees.
you? How dare you?
Big ass
trees.
old trees that are real pretty and make you feel like you're in a fantasy novel.
Ferns like up to your eyeballs if you're sort of a medium-sized child. It's beautiful. And I don't know, I'm just going to go on this digression because I get to. Fuck whoever cut that stuff down. How do you look at a tree that's that big and be like, I can make a whole ass house out of that? And then you do, and it's just, come on, guys. Leave some for the rest of us. But at the time, Victoria, the entire Vancouver Island, was beautiful. But it's a little too England for old Edwin. So he goes to the very top of the island to a fictional town of Cayette. Did anybody else Google where is this thing?
No.
No? Well, I Googled where is Cayette. I was like, oh, I want to go see it. It doesn't exist. So he's on this little town on the edge of Vancouver Island in the middle of absolute nowhere, just kind of like hanging out. And he sees a maple tree, a huge old growth maple tree in the forest. And he sort of is wandering into the forest. Along the way, he sees a guy. It's a priest that he has not seen before. And this guy watches Edwin walk into the forest to this tree. Then shit gets weird. He's looking at the tree. He looks up at it, and he like there's kind of a weird like glitchy thing. He passes out, and later he wakes up by the ocean, which is not that far away, but he wakes up by the ocean. And, he's kind of freaked out, and eventually that priest sees him again and just sort of asks him like, hey, what happened? Edwin is very confused and eventually actually discovers that this priest who, claims I'm the priest was actually really lying. He's not a priest. He had made up a story that he was sort of the backup priest, which I guess is a thing. That wasn't true. So Act 1 of 8 over. We've met Edwin and we've realized something weird is going on in the forest in Vancouver, which, got to be honest, if weird stuff's going to happen, the forest in Vancouver is the place to do weird shit. You're surrounded by ferns. Do weird shit.
Not redwoods.
Not redwood. Okay, fun fact. Redwoods basically stop at the border with Oregon.
Why would trees care about borders?
They care about cold, Sarah.
No, I understand.
Yeah. So up this way, it's like Douglas firs and like spruce trees and stuff. Cedar trees. They're all nice.
Do any of them allow you to shift in time?
So far, no. But maybe one day. Haven't seen all the trees. Maybe they cut down. What if, imagine that trees did let you like time travel, but we cut down all the old growth trees that let you time travel just to like turn into like fucking like, I don't know, train trestles or some stupid shit like that.
Late stage capitalism fucking would.
We're like, let's burn it for energy.
To be fair, that was early stage capitalism, Sarah.
Still right. Late stage capitalism is where there's like
shitty.
6 trees and you have to pay a lot of money to see them. This is a complete digression. None of this is in the book. Sorry. We're jumping forward. We're jumping forward to 2020. It's January 2020. We're no longer in amongst the ferns. We're now amongst New York City, and we're at an art show.
I don't know if this is a good place to call out, but Morella and Vincent, who are referenced in this chapter, are actually characters from Emily St. John Mandel. Sorry, I get her name
Some
wrong.
respect on her name, Andrew Corway.
I love her books. I get her name wrong all the time.
Look, she could have made it easier on us.
Yeah.
It's a lot of name.
So we're at this sort of cringy art show, and we do learn sort of an interesting point. So the composer has a sister whose name is Vincent. And as part of this, like, weird artsy sort of there's video going on behind music, etc. Part of her film is in the show, and she's under a huge maple tree. And there's this weird glitch in the filming. Shot kind of goes dark. You've all like dropped your phone while you're on like a FaceTime. That thing happens where you drop the phone and you pick it back up and it's all frazzled a little bit. That's just kind of happening in like the background, like super juxtaporn kind of thing to do. But it's just mentioned and you're like, hey, wait a minute. I'm looking for clues. There's a maple tree, something going on here. And what we find out is there's somebody in the crowd. Her name is Morella, as we mentioned. And she's actually there because of Vincent. Vincent is the sister. This was her best friend. She was trying to reconnect with her, sort of learn what happened to her after sort of an incident where they fell out of touch due to Vincent's husband running a Ponzi scheme and Morella losing all of her money and also her husband. Point is, she's there to say, all right, that wasn't great what happened, but I want to reconnect with Vincent. Vincent's dead. The awkward part is that the composer, Vincent's brother, says that she's dead at the beginning of the show. So poor Morella just like shows up at a show to reconnect with somebody via the brother who's immediately like, oh yeah, she's dead. Not great. It is pretty great how she died. She became a cook on a container ship and just disappeared into the ocean. Very mysterious. Spoiler alert, that didn't really come back. I'm going to call it here. That shit comes back in a future book.
It has to. It
100%.
has to come back in a future book.
It has
like,
to.
there's no way she has a cool, mysterious death that we don't learn anything about. Like, I can't wait to find out.
She goes from rich New York, married to a guy running a Ponzi scheme, to a cook on a container ship, to gone, not necessarily dead.
So that reminds me of another thing that she said in this interview. She said that the difference, and she's quoting someone, so I'm going to mess that up, but she said the difference between Canada and the US is in the US, there's no ceiling and there's no floor. So I think that character was like, no floor. Like, she went from rich, elite New York, container ship, cook, and then mysterious death at sea. And she said, at least in Canada, there's a floor.
America. But at least there's no ceiling. We could all one day have our own rocket ship company.
That's the dream, Tommy.
Big old space dildos.
There's so many colors left. right?
What?
Like the space dildos that they're firing. You got black with
Oh,
space.
they're always just metal.
SpaceX. You got Blue Origin, right? They have the blue
Oh.
color. So you got purple, you got orange. What color space dildo do you want to fire into space? That's so. If you're open field as far as billionaires are concerned, in my opinion.
Yeah, you got fuchsia, you got teal.
Peter Thiel can have the teal space dildo. But it's a far right-wing space dildo that doesn't think anyone should get a dildo.
Are there any other kind?
In space, everyone's libertarian.
Who's got the woke space dildo? We're getting lost in the sauce here.
My bad.
Okay, so Morella's at the show. Vincent's dead, but she decides to go and hang out with Vincent's brother. Do we ever get Vincent's brother's name?
If we do, I don't remember it.
Faisal.
Faisal. Completely unremarkable. Bad art, apparently, but he meets Vincent after the show and he's like, come out to dinner. And we end up in this sort of we've all been there, awkward scene where there's 4 people at dinner who don't know each other. There's the Faisal, the artist. There's Morella. There's this guy, Gaspery Roberts, who is very mysterious. And all we know so far is he has a weird accent. And there's this guy, Daniel McConaughey, who is awful. Wears a fedora, talks about his heroic use of LSD, just pretty bad.
And he wants to talk about the bad art real bad.
Yeah, really into the bad art, wearing a fedora and proud of his LSD. Just man.
Oh, we all know him. We
Fuck
all
that guy.
have been stuck talking to him somewhere. He's asked me out at least 3 times.
Did you say yes?
Do I look like I said yes, Tommy?
I don't know how to answer that.
Always no. The
No,
answer is
Tommy.
always no.
I don't know. How do you
The
know?
answer is always
How do you know ahead of time?
Fedora. It's like
Oh,
a
yeah,
flapping
okay,
red
yeah, no,
flag.
fedora, yeah,
It's
yeah.
I can do. I'm curious about the LSD, but the fedora is just run.
Yeah, it's the whole don't commit a crime when you're committing a crime. There's got to be some corollary to that. That's don't be a weirdo when you're being a weirdo. Too many weirdos and you don't get to be a weirdo because nobody will pay attention anymore. Fedora. No, don't broadcast that you don't want to be somebody that people talk to. Let them get a little close before you go, full weirdo. That's my advice if you're weird.
Yeah, fedora to me means you've hired an internet dating coach at some point, and that you're gonna pick lint off my shirt and subtly disrespect me in order
Has
to
that
try to get my
happened?
number. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. That's like a dating coach thing. They're like, oh, you're so brave to have your hair like that in 2025. They just say the
Whoa.
craziest shit you ever heard in your life. And they're holding a cane wearing a fedora because the internet dating coach told them that they had to look different to stand out.
Oh. And this guy's very dismissive, right? This guy with the fedora, very dismissive of Morella in the book.
Very dismissive. Yeah. But Gaspery Roberts, he's there to pay attention. Okay, I'm going to read this passage of the book because it's another one of these something's going on moments. Hope you're not offensed, the man in the fedora said. I don't think your hands are dirty or anything. I've just really gotten into Purell since this thing in Wuhan hit the news. He was rubbing his hands together with an apologetic smile. Fomites aren't a major mode of transmission with COVID-19, Gaspery said. Then a moment later, oh, right, Gaspery said, seemingly to himself. It's only January. So I had to okay, Rick, you read this when?
I read it right after it came out. So when it came out in 2022, it must have been right around then. Because it was definitely I was in lockdown in Toronto at the time.
There you go. Yeah. So I just read it now, but I had to think back. January was completely normal. Gaspery Roberts has screwed up here in just the most delicious way, right? He's called it COVID-19, which will be burned into all of our brains a mere month later. At the time, he's oop, too soon. And in fact, I looked it up. COVID-19 was officially named on February 11th.
But she did such a good job of choosing a real thing, right? Like this is a real thing people were worried about. No real bleaching their groceries or whatever. So Gaspery's response was on point, I think. Just a little early.
He screwed up in a way. You're like, what does this guy know? I will just say fomites, the word he used, it actually is a real word. It's a fancy pants way of saying surfaces that can transmit infection. I think it's the least sexy word for sexy bits. It's just the worst one.
I think there could be, you know what? Let's not dig into it. I agree with you, Tommy.
Okay. Fine. Just gonna leave that bait out there. You're not going to take it. All we know is something weird about Gaspery Roberts over here. He knows something we don't know. And then there's this one other thing that it's like I couldn't not notice it. So Gasperi mentions that he grew up in Cayette, that same town, the maple tree, etc. And Gasperi muses, oh, that's near Prince Edward Island. For the Canadians, where is Prince Edward Island?
On the other side of the country.
Yeah. This was another one that just like it happened and we moved on and we never discussed it again. I'm not sure if this is another like it's building to something in a future book, but I'm currently reading Station 11. So if we can keep the spoiler alerts to a minimum, there's another reference in that book to like a geographic anomaly. Like somebody just gets it wrong. So I'm wondering, like, this is a pattern in her books and I'm not sure where it's going.
She's too smart for this to be an error.
Oh, this is not an error.
And her editors are also too smart for this to be an error. Like, this is intentional, and I don't know why, but she does, and I'm excited to find out why she's, like, misplacing Canadian geography. Like, only really, like, Canadians are gonna really clock it, right?
Oh, Americans are like, it's all Canada.
Yeah. It's an Easter egg for Canadians, and I'm excited to see, like, where it leads us.
Okay. One last thing in this section. Shit gets weird. So we learn that Gasperi Roberts says he's been traveling around investigating the kind of anomaly that Vincent filmed, sort of weird glitches in reality, or he calls it maybe interactions with an invisible force. We do learn in this awkward dinner how Vincent died. She was a cook on a container ship and then disappeared. And then number 3 is a doozy. Miriam has this flashback to a murder that she witnessed as a kid. And there are all some of the details here. But we will say that as a kid, Miriam had to walk like under a sketchy underpass somewhere in Ohio to get home from the bus. It sounds terrible. She was always sort of afraid of this, and maybe for good reason, because one day she witnesses a double fucking homicide on her way home from school. And after this dude kills 2 people, he turns to her and says, "Hi, Miriam," and then wanders off. And like, what the fuck? Could you imagine?
He doesn't wander off. He gets dragged away by the police, doesn't he?
Oh, shit. That's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
He gets dragged away from the police. So he turns and says, "Hi, Miriam," and gets dragged off by the police.
Also, I think we've called this character 4 names.
Mirabella.
Mirabella, Miriam, Mirella. Like, we've called, like, it's all the same person. Listener, it's all the same person.
We're sorry. We all did read the book, swear to God. So like, how fucked up is she?
Yeah, that's a traumatic event for sure.
Yeah. It's just the like turning, like, "Oh, hi, Miriam." Like, whoa. And so, but Miriam has this weird like, whoa, this is the same person at the same age. And he's just like, now he's in New York hanging out at dinner with me. And that's deeply unsettling. But the pace of this novel is just like perfection. We're on to the next thing. That happened. Don't dwell on it. On to the next thing. The next thing is the year 2203. We've jumped forward 200 years-ish in history, and we meet another person. We meet Olive. Olive lives on the moon in a colony called Colony 2. But she's actually on Earth because she wrote a book. She's a novelist, and she's written a book, funny enough, about pandemics, and she's back on Earth doing her book tour. Some things never change. I love that we have novelists in 2203. She was sort of wandering in obscurity until it was turned into a movie. Truly, just like nothing changes. And she's just on this like grind of a book tour. I thought this was maybe my favorite section of the book, actually. She's just like, every hotel room is the same, and every driver is the same, and every conversation is the same. And just like, the subtle sexism of these interactions she's having back on Earth, and you just like really feel her loneliness.
I feel like Emily St. John Mandel here. So this is a book about that jumps around in time, right? Like section to section, we went from Edwin to like modern time. Now we're in the future, but within this perspective, so the POV of Olivia, every single paragraph is Olivia jumping around in time on this book tour. Like she's kind of lost in her own little space as she's running this book tour and missing her family. I thought, what a great literary device to just like on the paragraph level, just hitting home the theme of the book. That was just like really entertaining to read. Just phenomenal.
I liked that it was like slightly autobiographical. I'm always curious about authors and their lives. And I know, like, based on interviews that she's done, that this is sort of autobiographical. Like she's bringing in her own experiences. And I loved that like window into the author's world, and that someone kind of who's an approximation of the author gets to be a character in this book.
So there's a couple of plot points that we need to talk about. She's having these conversations with her husband back on the moon. I guess they have phone calls. And he's an architect. He's working on a university physics building. And he just sort of, by the way, points out that the physics building has this elaborate underground connection to the police and to the government buildings. And this is another one of these just like, put a pin in that thing that just came up. But we'll come back to that later.
But it's also well done because it's very much like when you have a partner, you're just like talking about weird stuff that happens in your day to day. And like it happens to relate back to the theme of the book, but like it's presented in a very real way.
Yeah, it's like, okay, something's happening, but she's like, oh yeah, the physics guys, they need to talk to the police at a moment's notice. That's fine. So then the other like thing that is the undertone is that there's some news about a new disease that has flared up, this time in Australia. And, there's these discussions we've all now been through of like, well, it's partially contained. And then, there's that thing where like, oh, it was in Australia, but then there's somebody who was in Nairobi and couldn't make it to the interview in Japan because it's in Nairobi now. And like, people are sort of subtly, it's expanding and it's moving out. Keep in mind, she's on Earth doing a book tour about a pandemic. And so becoming sort of, caught the moment and becoming increasingly famous. But it's, this sort of the stress of the area, just like the need, like the urge to get home is just getting bigger and bigger. As this progresses, she's at sort of one of the last stops on this book tour. And apparently the way these work, you give lectures, you do these kind of things, you sign books. You also sit down with like the local press. And so she sits down with this kind of weird guy. Oh yeah, sorry. I got to talk about one other weird thing. She's asked to autograph a book somewhere on this book tour. And when she opens the book, it's already been signed by her. That's weird. There's an inscription in there that says, Harold, I enjoyed last night, XOXOXO, Olive Llewellyn. Like, whoa, what is going on? This one is another one, just like, all right, put a pin in that. But she's a little freaked out, right? And then she goes to an interview, and it's Gasperi. We now know his name is Pagenerdhq. What a guy. And so he sits down and he wants to ask about a very specific instance in one of her books where somebody was in basically like an airport. They call them like a spaceport, but in an airport in Oklahoma, of all places. And the way it's described in the novel is this person hears a violin and quote unquote gets transported. And Gasperi wants to know if this was something that Olive experienced in real life. They're about to go and talk about this, but poof, the chapter has ended and the breakneck pace, we're on to the next thing. But so we know that Gasperi's here too, and some other anomaly, something like the maple tree has happened and Olive witnessed it.
And they speak about the violin music in this one as well, right?
Yes, there's violin music at the airship. That's going to be important.
And another thing that I think we learn in this part is that Pagenerdhq is the name of a character in one of Olive's books that she wrote a while ago. And then she just met someone who is in his 30s with a name that she wrote in a book like 5 years ago.
Yeah, a very unique sounding name, especially for the time. But they do discuss it during the interview because she knows that the guy shares a name with the character from her book. It's like that is a point of discussion.
It's also worth dwelling a little bit. We are in the future in this section. It's just very interesting what is and is not the same. Emily sort of casually mentions a few countries like the Dakota territories, the Atlantic region, United Carolina, which will never happen. So there's, apparently the United States is no more. It is broken up into small states.
Republic of Texas.
The Republic of Texas, that one may happen. And then I guess there's sort of lawless territory, sort of out there. We don't really learn about this too much, but something has happened, right? The United States is broken up. So on to the next thing. Sorry, pace is crazy. We got to go. It's 2401. It's 200 years later. I was just like thinking a little bit of this in my head of like, okay, how do I make sense of how long that is? We basically jumped 200 years from the last period. We jumped 175 years in that one from today. If we go backwards 175 years, it's 1850. So for perspective, like how far forward do we go? If we go backwards in time, that's 1850. Steam trains were the height of new technology, but they had this problem where they exploded a lot. They're very dangerous. And they went like 30 miles an hour, which freaked people out. We had, I believe, discovered germ theory, but didn't believe in it. Some people still don't. But very, very few people believed in it.
And we can see them now.
Well,
The humors are just so much more fun than modern medicine.
honestly, yeah. The humors, like doctors back then were like, I'm going to bleed you. We don't need to go into this, but there was this whole thing about like, if a woman comes in, she just like needs an orgasm. That was a real science thing, apparently.
Honestly, it's not the worst thing that's been done to us in medical science.
I've never thought about it that way.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not like their husbands were doing it. So
Well, yeah, exactly.
Somebody has to know what a vibrator is, and it's only
I mean,
doctors.
It is a medical device. So anyway, that's back then. We were like, getting women off in the doctor's office, but nowhere else. And our trains exploded. Right. Yes, I made Sarah laugh uncontrollably. She had to mute. So, okay, jump forward 175. And, we live on the moon. The United States is no more. Jump another 200 years forward. Right. And that's where we are in section 4, 2401. And a really beautiful thing, I think, in this section is we've learned that, we progressed, we've colonized the moon, and now we're in this period of decay on the colony on the moon, which is super clever. What was it? Colony 2, right? Where Olive lived.
Yep.
We actually meet Gaspery Roberts we'll call it in his birth world, in the world where he comes from. And he lives in Colony 2, but Colony 2 is like kind of run down. The fake sky has broken. And so, you're on the moon, and so you don't have like a 24-hour day. They were simulating this with sort of a dome, but it's broken. And so now it's just like a month of light and then a month of dark.
There's 3 colonies on the moon. There's 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 3 still have like this dome that simulates the blue, like Earth sky. So they're kind of like the nice neighborhoods. And then the second one, like you're alluding to, Tommy, the sky, the hologram has broken. So it's just giant blackness of space overhead. They've dubbed this the Night City. And it's like run down, decrepit. I think it's like crime is a little bit more, or drug use is a little more pervasive in the streets, that kind of thing.
I feel like this is like the moon Gotham.
I did not get Gotham. I got like Toledo.
Oh.
I got like Rust Belt. Yeah, just like falling apart.
It didn't have like the crime riddenness, the grittiness
Yeah.
of Gotham at all. It just kind of
Seedy.
had like sad suburbia that's really dark.
And there's like you can get to Chicago. Like you can get to Colony 1, and we will in this section. You can get there, but like it's over there and you live in kind of the shithole. So we're in the far future. We sort of hit one of these pinnacles. We've colonized the moon. And now the moon is just kind of another seedy place. We learn a few things. So Gaspery Roberts, this is where he actually grew up in Colony 2, this sort of rundown thing. And he walks by this old house where a famous author used to live. This would be like walking past like Edgar Allan Poe's house in Baltimore or something, right? Like in terms of like how long ago, he walked by this, oh, that's the house where Olive used to live a long time ago. It's just growing up. His sister is like super smarty pants and works over in the Time Institute, which I believe it's in Colony 1, which is the fancier, nicer. That's the Chicago to Toledo. Or I guess what's that town in like the armpit of the lake? Do you guys, Hamilton? It's like the Toronto to Hamilton.
Yeah.
Nice Canadian reference, Tommy.
Yeah,
Hey.
yeah.
I still remember. Where were we? Oh, right. His smarty pants sister works at something called the Time Institute. She just drops in. Yeah, we have time travel. There's the Time Institute. It's the thing that manages time travel, but it's taken for granted. Of course we have time travel. It's way in the future. So we need the Time Institute to essentially manage the timeline, right? Their job is to essentially make sure that as we travel back in time, we don't screw anything up.
I think one of the things here is we don't see how time travel was invented. We see, like you said, the boring part where it ended up. So they talk about how when time travel first got invented, how they put a bunch of like bureaucracy around it to control how people could use it, where people could use it. Now, like you said, it's just a boring government building, right? And this goes back to the conversation that she had with her husband, where he was architecting this weird building that turned out to be the Time Institute, right? So basically people were using this thing or misusing this time travel. So they had to have some sort of governance or bureaucracy to go back and figure out how to get back onto the timeline, the main timeline, let's call it. And like you said, this being part of a bureaucracy machine, like a lot of it is about doing research and figuring out the ins and outs of who you're going to meet, where you're going to meet them, what was going on at the time, dressing period appropriate. So when you send people back to fix the timeline, you don't make things worse. So that's kind of the big part of it that most time travel stuff doesn't get into, is just how important the research part about it would be, how important it is that you have all this process behind it.
But there's also an aspect of, why do we do it this way? We do it this way to protect that we do it this way. I got like NASA vibes almost. You've got this enormous group of people that are helping prepare a very select few people to go back in time, right? To travel. The average person at the Time Institute is a historian. But in this world where time travel is the thing that the boring bureaucrats do, Gasperi is just a guy in that world.
Well, he works in a hotel. He's working hotel security, right?
Hotel security. And maybe there's a theme here. He's much like Hail Mary, much like Dark Matter, he's just sort of pulled into this thing, right? He was just a guy.
Well, he actively wants it, at least. Like in this case, he learns a little bit about it and finds it very interesting and worms his way in.
Gets a hint, that something's going on over there. They're, of course, bureaucrats. They're very secretive.
I think it's a good literary device because obviously, like, we don't know what the hell's going on. So then if the protagonist doesn't know what the hell's going on, the people around the protagonist can explain it without it feeling like info dumpy.
I guess world building can be very boring.
Yeah.
But it's not. Emily St. John does not make it boring.
And she does a good job of like dripping things in, like, okay, why does Texas? She doesn't even explain all this shit, right? Like, but it's just like enough to like tint it and give you a vibe. So she's like a pretty great author just for that alone.
Yes. Yeah. The amount she doesn't say. Like, this book is not that long, but it's just like a full world.
It's so tight. It's exactly.
Yeah. So I think that like the main reason that we have this Time Institute is they're actually investigating what they call anomalies, right? And so what are anomalies? They are effectively, they're like that thing with the maple tree. They're glitches in the space-time continuum. And the reason they're really interested in this is they think that those glitches in space-time might be evidence that we live in a simulation, right? Think of it as like somebody like, I don't know, burned a hole through the tape in some spot, and you can sort of like reach in and out of time. We can talk about this if we want. I don't know. Do we live in a simulation? All of us went to college. We are no longer in college. Who gives a shit if we live in a simulation? But these people care a lot if we do. And they think that finally we can actually test this hypothesis that we live in a simulation by confirming that, hey, there was an anomaly where essentially, the tape got garbled across the space-time continuum. So they send these Voyagers back in time to investigate these anomalies where it feels like the same thing was experienced by multiple people that were different in space and time. So now it's beautiful. It all comes together. Oh, okay, the maple tree thing, this thing with Olive and the spaceship and the violin, it's all maybe an anomaly. Right? Gasperi learns a little bit about this. Sidebar, like the operational security at the Space Institute is like not great.
It's awful.
It's awful. In this secretive place, he just like finds out on the slide, like, oh, by the way, we need people to travel back in time and investigate anomalies. And he's like, sign me up. I'll go.
It's even worse than that. So like he was outside the Time Institute and like colleagues were just strolling out talking about the time and he was eavesdropping. So like this highly classified information, they were just like literally shouting to any idiot on the street could overhear it. And that's where Gasperi like met this individual who he knew, and that's how he got recruited. But like it was literally him just like on the street, like, hey, you guys talking about time travel, right? And they're like, yeah.
But it's one of those things where no one has access to time travel. So like them talking about what sort of things they're investigating, like it'd be like a physics researcher talking about their results not aligning with the standard model of physics. Like there's nothing anyone's going to do with that information. Like it's scientific research is what they're doing here.
But I think it's still a secret that like we might be in a simulation. And in fact, there's compelling evidence that we are.
Well, and that's like, again, with any kind of scientific research, is it feels like they've hit something that they can't accurately describe with the current model of physics. So they're investigating what it is. And again, their theory is that it's a simulation bug. So like we're in a simulation, there's a bug in the rule set that's been written and we want to investigate that.
That's right. And so the point of section 4 is like this pivot point in the book, right? Where we learn that, okay, Gasperi Roberts is in fact this time traveler person. We kind of knew this, but we are now all fully aware that time travel is a thing. It definitely exists. And I thought it'd be good to momentarily pause and talk a little bit about time travel. God, this podcast is going to be time travel and like, do we live in a simulation? Let's get time travel out of the way super fast. Rick, do you want to tell us what time travel is?
So time travel is essentially taking the theory of relativity and taking advantage of it. So Einstein's theory of relativity is essentially that we're all experiencing time differently. So it's all based on your inertial frame, and based on how fast you're going relative to things around you, you experience time differently. So using that concept, we can very easily travel forward in time. So the idea for that is if you start traveling super fast, close to the speed of light, and everything else stays the same, you're not going to experience very much time. So traveling to the future is definitely something that if you could start traveling safely close to the speed of light, you could do it. It's physically possible.
Hold on, I just want to clarify that because I am currently traveling to the future.
You are?
I think what you mean, if I go super fast, this is why mind-boggling, but it's true. If I go super fast, I slow down. Like my perception of time slows down. So if I just like take off and go super fast for a while and I come back and visit the three of you, y'all are old, but I'm not. Because I didn't age.
Yeah, and they demonstrate this with the twins paradox, where you send one twin out to outer space very quickly, and they come back and they meet their twin, and one of them is biologically older and one is biologically younger. So they've experienced less time because they travel close to the speed of light.
Okay. All right. I think I need more information. So, in terms of the narrative of this book, they're literally like
they're going
shifting
backwards.
Time periods. Yeah, they're going backwards.
Yeah, they're
and
going
forwards.
backwards. That can't happen. That's like the yes. Okay. Time travel as we know it. As you get closer to the speed of light, time slows down. If you were to make it to the speed of light, technically time stops.
Wait, how does time stop?
It doesn't, because you can't get to the speed of light. But you think about like it slows down, and as you get closer to the speed of light, it slows down more. It could like, we call this asymptotically approaching zero. That's the fancy word for like it approaches zero.
But it doesn't get there.
But it doesn't get
It
there.
approaches it at infinitely close, but it does not get there.
Yeah. Now, there's another level of this, which is, oh, hey, time is all of a sudden this thing where like we experience it differently. Like you can think about it changing for different perspectives. What if it could go backwards? But like there is no scientific sort of mechanism for that to happen at all, but it's like a fun thing.
Although they have named the particle for it is called a tachyon.
A tachyon? What is a tachyon?
It's like a theoretical particle that would exist if you started traveling faster than the speed of light.
Oh, I still don't think it would make time go backwards.
Tachyons travel backwards in time.
Okay, so there is okay, fine.
It does not
They don't
exist. It is a theoretical particle. It has never been proven to exist.
This is a podcast, so you can't see my face right now, but it is melting off of my body.
Sarah's like, what in the hell are these guys? Okay, point is, time travel is this idea that you go back in time. I like to think about it this way. Think of a movie. A movie is a series of two-dimensional images, right, on a timeline. And you can imagine talking about a character. Quick, what's a movie we've all seen?
Star Wars.
No, something, come on. It's too on the nose. I'm going to go with what I first thought, which is Titanic. So we're going with Titanic.
You're such a romantic, Tommy.
Okay, real talk, I've never seen Titanic.
You picked
Never seen it. No,
You could have chose any movie that you saw.
because
Right.
I only know like two scenes. One is when she's naked, which is why I haven't seen it. I was like, religious kid. And two is that they die.
What about
Spoiler
Jurassic
alert.
Park? Have you seen Jurassic
Park. I did watch that because my grandma let me watch it because she didn't know there was a lot of cursing. And then she's
Grandma
like,
sounds
Tommy,
cool.
what did you pick? Okay, so Jurassic
Wait,
Park.
dinosaurs eating people out of
Mm.
like toilets is fine, but the cursing's not fine?
There are no nipples.
Dinosaurs don't have boobs.
Nipples is the line?
Yeah. Well, where are we?
Okay. We're learning about time travel. We're talking about Jurassic Park.
So,
Tommy had
okay.
a very sheltered childhood. Go.
We might have to we should cut all of this. Sorry, Nanny.
We can.
Okay.
No, we're not cutting any of this. I fucking needed this lore.
Okay,
It's the
fine.
emotional core of this
You're
podcast.
watching a movie. Okay, this is the mind-bending part. Okay, as you're watching a movie, there's a person in the movie. The character is, in a Jeep or whatever. And in the next part of the movie, it's like in a dinosaur's poop. Right? That happened in the movie. I do recall that. You can fast forward and rewind the movie. You can go and be like, where is character? I forget the character's names, whatever. Where is John right now? Oh, well, if you fast forward to this point in time, John is in a Jeep. If you fast forward to this part of time, John is in dinosaur poop. So what these people at the Time Institute have figured out how to do, using, I assume, a tachyon, is they can sort of rewind time and pick a spot where they want to be. Now, super tricky thing if you were to do this, the Earth is moving. We all know this, right? The Earth is moving in space. So like, you better be really fucking good at picking your spot. So imagine this is real life and like, it's actually Sarah and she's just like cruising around Seattle. And sometimes she's in the streetcar and sometimes she's in her house. Okay. And what I want to do is jump forward in time and sit beside Sarah in the streetcar. I better be really good at knowing where the streetcar is going to be when I decide to jump into time.
Because you don't want to peer halfway in the wall of the streetcar.
What if I'm halfway through the wall of the streetcar? And this gets much worse because the Earth is moving through space, right? What if I like get it wrong and like the Earth is gone? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like it has continued around its merry way around the sun. It's becoming fall. I missed by 3 months and like I'm just like in space. So that's the thing they figured out is they can put their little bracelet on, I think it is, and just like decide to be in a spot in time anytime they want. And that's kind of cool that they did that. So that's time travel, which doesn't exist.
Well, you can go forward, can't go backwards.
You can go forward. We should jump forward. Okay, we're jumping forward. Gasperi was just sort of this guy that is doing, like, I guess, like hotel security, but he's got a super smart sister who works at the Time Institute. She's involved in some mysterious stuff, but they're really shitty at being secretive. Gasperi hears about this and decides that he also wants to become a time traveler, right? He wants to go back in time and investigate this anomaly that they think they've found.
And it's not a glamorous job. Like, that's the reason why Gasperi could even learn about it, is because you can mess things up if you travel in time. You can provide the wrong information or tip someone off about a future pandemic. Like, you can mess the timeline up. And those people either go to prison or they get lost in time. So it can be a really, really bad way to get a paycheck.
Because you either have to like sometimes watch injustice play out and be able to do nothing about it, or do something about it and then, like you said, go to jail back in time and get essentially disappeared.
Their bureaucratic punishment system. What is it? Is it like Japan that has the room they put you in? Like they can't fire you, so they just like leave you in a room to do nothing for a while. It's like that, but in space-time. They'll just plop you somewhere in the past where there's some sort of unsolved crime, frame you for the crime and be like, he's in jail in like, 1972. We don't have to worry about that guy anymore. It's creepy as hell.
Yeah, back before there was like written records kept. So you just disappear. Yep.
I do think we had written records in 1972. Who knows? None of us were there.
They just find something that doesn't really affect the timeline too much that they can just drop you in prison for.
And part of this is, I think they're, let's say they insert Andrew in like Woodstock in 1969. They're like watching the historical record going forward to see if Andrew like fucked anything up.
I would have. I definitely would have.
Oh, that's why I picked you. And so most of these people in this Time Institute are just like doing super boring shit. Just like reading on newspapers to be like, oh, that guy that made a scene at Woodstock, like, did anybody remember it in 30 years? And if the answer is no, like, we're good. Right? That's crazy.
Andrew, I think you would have fit right in at Woodstock, by the way.
Yeah. I'm a raver. Is that what you call them? The rave?
Definitely not.
Ravers definitely always ask if they're called ravers. That's a real tip-off that someone
They're curious
does
types.
A lot of public MDMA, which is
I know all about
for sure.
that. And MDMA, I do it all the time. I'm on it right now, actually.
It's why you keep dancing in the background.
Yeah, I cannot sit still. That's one of my things. I really, getting back to the book, I really like that the historians got one here, because I feel like it's one of those professions where like, it's like, don't go to be a historian. What are you going to do with that? I feel like this book really gave them a layup to go like, look, we're going to be important when it comes to time travel, right?
That's a great call, though. Once you can travel back in time, history becomes a lot more practical thing to study.
Truly.
An applied historian.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's a wild
history.
idea.
That's right.
Pagenerd doesn't have ads yet, so we are going to take this space to shout out our favorite indie bookstores and public libraries. Today, Pagenerd is brought to you by the Greater Victoria Public Library. If you are in Victoria, BC, and you are looking for somewhere to find a Pagenerd book or a quiet place to work or some community events, creative spaces, tech access, or programs for your kids, please check out the Greater Victoria Public Library. That is where you can go and ask questions, satisfy your curiosity, build some community, and hey, maybe you'll see my sister, who is a philosophy professor at UVic and spends a lot of time at the Greater Victoria Public Library.
Okay, section 4, key thing you got to know. The Time Institute is bureaucracy. The Time Institute is very secretive, but they're very bad at it. They let slip that they're investigating that maybe this is all just a simulation. And Gasperi is all of a sudden very motivated to get out of his crappy security job and go be like a time travel agent in the Time Institute. And the key thing, the thing they keep reminding him, do not, whatever you do, fuck with the timeline. Don't interject yourself. Don't do anything to like screw up anything that you observe. If something happens, you have to impassively observe it. Whatever you do, Gasperi, as you travel through time, don't fuck with the timeline. Despite the fact that you know exactly what's going to happen in the future and you've studied it for years and got this like almost parasocial relationship with these people you've been tracking. Now we're going to throw you back into the past, see what happens. And so this is really lovely, this like pyramidal shape of the book. We're like, we're now in 2401, 2403, one of those. I guess not anymore. We're 24-ish because he's 10 years of training. We're going to go back to 2203. Olivia is in an interview with Gasperi, and we're dropped right back into that interview. And let's keep in mind, a pandemic is spreading, right? And so he's asking questions about this anomaly that he's there to investigate. But he sort of drops this hint, gets kind of serious of like, hey, that instinct you have to go home right now, do it. And I think Olivia is sort of in a mode, sort of already just very uneasy. And this is enough to push her over the line. And she just gets on the next spaceship and goes back to the moon. And we learn that in the correct timeline, she was going to die 3 days later in New York. Right. And remember how like desperately she wanted to see her kid. That wasn't going to happen.
I so love how he does it too, because he basically sets up this like, imagine if a time traveler appeared in front of you with a name from a book that you wrote years ago and told you to go home. Would you listen? And she just has this like gut reaction of like, okay, all right, there's enough weird, like he's got a weird accent. He's named directly after a character in my book, but we're about the same age. We're both in our 30s, so that doesn't make any sense. And I know a little bit about pandemics because I've written a book about one, and I keep getting these signs and I'm ignoring my gut. And so that was what she needed to hear. But he does call himself a time traveler in the conversation and kind of uses that like, what if I told you? And she goes right home to her kid.
Right home. Timeline has been altered. And I think another like just beautiful breadcrumb, it makes total sense that Emily St. John Mandel was like a crime noir author before, because the threads, man, the threads are so good.
Yeah.
So good. Another little thread is that Olivia, okay, so there's this whole scene we can talk about in a second where Olivia's now just like riding out the pandemic on the moon. And she starts Googling this guy. Like, who is this Gasperi Roberts fellow? She fucks up the Google history because she wrote a famous book with that guy as an author. I know a little about this because if you Google Tommy Guy, for a while it was a bull rider who was more famous than me, and now it's a stunt double that's more famous than me. So like if you got to find me, you got to look a little harder. And if you're going to go find Gasperi Roberts, you got to go like beyond all of the stuff about this book that is very famous. And she does eventually find this nugget that he was mentioned in a prison reform article in the late 20th century where he was in jail for being convicted of a double homicide. It's just like, oh, I see what's about to happen.
There's one thing maybe to mention for Olivia before we move on, which is at one point she goes down to her front steps and she starts to like take the air of the night just by herself. And she eavesdrops on Gasperi and his sister. And they're kind of like arguing about what he did. So she kind of starts to become aware a little bit about what had happened.
Yeah, she's definitely in on it by then. My first instinct would be, I am losing it. But she's a sterner person than me, maybe. I'm going to briefly jump and talk about Section 8. I'm going to go all the way back to 1918 just briefly, because once Gasperi, basically like immediately, what I'm going to do is screw with the timeline. Then he kind of goes rogue and it's like, I'm going to do it more. This was fun. So this is kind of interesting. His rogueness is to go back to Edwin, who, when we left him, he was on the north side of Vancouver Island. He'd had this experience with a tree and he drank too much. World War I happened. It didn't go great for basically anyone. He was in World War I. He survived it, but he lost a foot and he's got pretty severe PTSD. He's just sort of hanging out in the estate. Oh, by the way, he's no longer a second son. He's a first son because the first son died in World War I. So he has the estate now and he's hanging out there. And good old Gasperi shows up. Edwin has a tenuous grasp on reality at this point. Or he's really suffering from PTSD. But he's got this like, man, what was that thing that happened in Vancouver? Like, was that the start of my mental decline almost? And so Gasperi comes in and explains like, no, that was real. Like, I know about it too. So it's not just in your head. I'm the guy, like, remember me? And sort of reassures him. And this keeps him from going to a mental asylum. So again, fuck with the timeline. However, he dies 3 days later of the Spanish flu. So instead of dying in an asylum in a few days, he dies, in basically the same amount of time. We learned this cool fact that when we talk about like, don't screw with the timeline, we specifically mean don't screw with the timeline in a way that harms the Time Institute. Like all bureaucracies, they primarily exist to protect themselves, which is kind of this nice little nugget.
And you also wonder, like, if they only have mechanisms in place where the researchers are researching themselves. Like, you can't research everything all the time. So, like, I don't know if that mechanism comes into it, but for sure, they're very self-interested.
So now Gasperi is just like rogue, traveling through time, warning people about their impending doom. It mostly doesn't matter. I believe we also learned that the Olivia thing like doesn't really matter. Basically what this means is like whatever it is you're up to in 100 years, it literally will not impact the earth at all. But if you were to, go back and kill Hitler, I guess it would, and they would lock you away in a jail somewhere.
Worth it.
It's not true for everyone all the time, but it's true for most people most of the time.
Right. So I'm going to jump. Emily St. John Mandel did it, so we can do it. We're going to jump, forward in time to, this is now session 6 of the book, if you're paying attention, where he really does like ride inside the anomaly. And we learn about this thing of like, he sort of sees all of them at once. And I guess comes to the conclusion that maybe this really was like a glitch in the matrix. And maybe we are in a simulation. But then in that same section, he knows like he's going to have sort of one more destination, if you will. He knows like, I've seen this movie, like literally seen this movie already. I will be traveling to Ohio. And my read of the time travel is that it's sort of, you get what they program. It's more like being like a astronaut than it is being like a airline pilot. Like you get in the rocket and the rocket's going where the rocket's going. Fun fact, I heard somewhere that because like the early astronauts were like macho he-men, they couldn't just be like along for the ride. They needed something to do. And so there was some like completely programmable operation in early space flight, but they left it as a button. So they're like, your job, Neil Armstrong, is to push the button. What does the button do? Not a goddamn thing if we overwrite it, but you need to push the button because you're special.
Because they were all pilots, right? They were like advanced level pilots.
And then they're like, what you're going to do is sit in this tube and not touch anything.
And do some
science. Unacceptable. Touch the one thing. Do it right when we tell you. Anyway, all that is to say, I think you just like get sent where you're going. And so where he's going is an underpass in Ohio, where his job is to get framed for murder and also freak the fuck out of like a little girl. I don't think that was in the script, but he did it. So he's framed. He's in jail for like, I think for life. And, there's this interesting thing. The book sort of like, almost like picks up pace in some sense. He lives for, like 20 years in jail. He starts getting sick and they point out that he's sick in a way that was easily fixable if he'd been sort of in his home time frame, which is sort of this beautiful idea. It'd be like, you send us back in time. I mean, I think you guys know this. I have type 1 diabetes. So like send me back 120 years and I'm dead. That's bananas. But like, it'd be exactly that. Send him back in time and he's dead, right? And he is back in time. But he's riding this out. He's got a heart condition. His sister comes back in time and brings him forward in time, gets his heart thing fixed because they bring him to the time when they can fix this thing. And then they send him to the farm. If they don't like want to put you in jail, they just send you to this farm in Kansas when Kansas is functionally depopulated because robots do farming now.
Well, and his sister's like not working for the Time Institute anymore. She's like moved to some other industry that also is time related. And like one of the stipulations was that she'd be able to go back and save her brother. Like they explain it away in a couple of lines, but that's kind of the thrust behind it, is that she has this lateral movement because of her movement from the Time Institute.
But Zoe drops Gasperi on the farm and says, I'm probably never going to see you again. Get to know the neighbors, be friendly. That's right. How she leaves him.
Get to know the neighbors. And the neighbor is also from the future. We learn that the neighbor is was it childhood friend, I guess, like sort of early crush.
Yeah, they grew up together and then worked together briefly.
It's another one of these threads that she weaves through this book. So they're both marooned in some sense in the distant past to them. It's 2172, but the distant past to them, just living out their life stuck in Kansas and on a farm. But they fall in love, they get married, and the pace just becomes like unrelenting through this section. Like the inevitability of it becomes unrelenting in this section where he knows what's going to happen. I guess maybe he saw his face or something, but he realizes, I've interviewed this guy in the space station. He was a widower. I'm going to be a widower. That was me. And so I'm going to learn to play the violin and I'm going to compose a song and she's going to die. And it just tick, tick, tick. Like the inevitability of all of this happens. And the book sort of closes with, he learns the violin and he goes to the space port and he's playing the violin. And then there he comes to observe this thing. And there's Olivia coming in, this person that in his like internal timeline, all of this happened like 40 years ago, 50 years ago. But he's like, I know it's going to happen. And here it is. All these people come and he's the guy that causes the anomaly because he's there and like, multiple versions of
interviewing
him.
himself. Yeah.
Yeah, he's interviewing himself and Olivia happens to be nearby. And all of these different like versions of him that collide almost in time. There can only be one of you at any given time, but now there's two. And that's what causes the glitch. And that was kind of cool.
I loved that ending because I didn't see it coming at all. It was one of those really, really beautifully written endings that ties so many threads together and almost explains the thing. Like, obviously, we can't explain whether or not we're in a simulation and why you would break the space-time continuum, but it explains it as much as you possibly could in one of these novels. And it was also just like so gorgeously done. And you start picking up, like, as you're reading it, she's breadcrumbing this. His wife plays the violin. He picks up the violin. His wife gets sick. Like you start to see it coming as he's seeing it coming. And it's so beautifully done. I just love this book so much.
It's so good.
Like you said, Sarah, I had no indication that this is the way the book would end. Like they left threads all throughout this book. And then at the end, it all kind of wraps up so nicely. It was an absolutely wonderful ending. The discovery of him like figuring out how he fits in the timeline overall is very sweet, but also very like intriguing.
And I love that a person is the glitch. It's such a like deeply human book for a science fiction book.
And to be fair, based on everything humans have done, we probably are the glitch.
We are the glitch. But it's his humanity that's the glitch. Like he's trying to help all of these people and therefore he is creating this rift with his kind of like dumb golden retriever kindness, but like I love him for it.
All right. Just wanted to say this entire time I've been talking about a character called Olive, and I've been misnaming her as Olivia. So I just got to apologize and straighten the account on that one.
Andrew, you gotta get ladies' names right. That's a thing we gotta work on. Emily St. John Mandel.
Emily St. John Mandel. I apologize if you're listening also. I think I'm just getting old. My episodic memory is not what it used to be, you know?
We're never going to get her to come on our show if you can't get her name.
Sorry, Olive. I know you're fictional, but I apologize to you too.
No, you're fictional. We are sad for you. Pagenerd is Tommy Guy, Sarah Stockdale, Andrew Corway, and Rick Vieweg. Our producer is Jay Cockburn. Next, we'll be reading Frankenstein by the legend Mary fucking Shelley. Happy reading!